cold in here, always.
Last week was
Decided to
horrible.
wear a jacket.
Last week even he couldn't hardly speak.
Who's he?
The second guy.
Oh,
Rabbi Tilton.
yeah.
Thank you for remembering.
It's just too cold in here.
Yep. You don't care about us then.
I hope you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I am.
Good.
Thank you.
Next time you're making chicken soup, you call me up to sit in your house and watch. The last 2 times I made it, I gave it to the dog.
Did the dog eat my dog?
Yeah, they love my chicken soup.
Oh, but
It's
he's
not
not
real
real.
chicken.
The one on
Yes.
The ebbs and flows of life, you know? Absolutely. I was telling our daughter yesterday on the phone, you know, she's the one in Atlanta. I said, she was saying she has a little issue, okay? I said, Rachel, I've always told you, most of life for us is relatively normal. Every once in a while, God lets us smell the roses, but you know you're not going to stay there forever. And unfortunately, in life, things happen where we have to go down. You know, losing a parent, losing a good friend, losing a job, huh?
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep.
that's real life.
Yep. It
Huh?
is. You got ups and downs, and you just roll with the punches and count your blessings. So many people have it way worse.
They can't see because
This way, we just want to see your face when we're talking and make sure this whole seating arrangement. She started saying, thank you so much.
Sure.
I didn't ask him, I just did.
Okay, I hope you're better soon.
I told them to change their seat, they said they didn't want to. Tell the rep how we want to move to.
Better.
That's not bad, but bad.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
You got your books, you got
I baked them at 3 o'clock this morning.
Did you? Hello, I gave you a book.
Hi, good morning.
I'll get you one to,
I didn't take your bills.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello.
how are you?
Fine.
I'm fine, except for the world.
Oh, I'm thrilled.
Huh?
I'm thrilled.
I'm kind of fed up with the world. I'm concentrating on the baseball season.
I don't know where,
It's much
maybe
more relaxing.
there's no
Huh?
place. Maybe, can I just get these on? Someone's sitting there, right?
No,
Because I don't want to.
Oh, I'm sorry, but I had to sit down.
There's some extra. Oh, she got one, okay.
no, I don't have anything to do with it.
Forgot to ask, are you feeling better?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, please feel better. And it's
you,
cold
thank you,
in this room. It's,
It's uncomfortable.
yeah, it is. Do I have glasses? Yes, thank you. I have glasses. I didn't have time to think.
Your redheaded friend.
That's a cookie. Oh, no, that's a cupcake, right?
I have a family and I do this. Really, thank you so much.
Are you feeling okay?
Much
A little pale still? No?
No,
Oh,
I
good.
think so.
All right, good, good.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Say again. It's about time. You missed me? Oh, thank you. I'm feeling much better. I still have a little bit of a cough, a little bronchitis, but I'm definitely not contagious anymore. And after antibiotics and everything, I'm doing much better. Thank you. So I hope everyone had, I haven't seen you since Purim, so I hope everyone had a nice Purim. It's always a very kind of a crazy situation at my place. We do Evie was there. We do a Purim spiel, and I run around as Haman and scream at everybody, and everybody throws things and sticks their tongue out and screams back at me. And so, oh, and Ken and Eileen were there as well. So anyway, we always have a great time. Okay. So I want to go today to Croatia. So you'll see on the map here that Croatia is that dark blue spot that I have filled in on the right-hand side to the east of, on the eastern side in Europe, in the Balkans. Who has been to Croatia who wants to tell us a little bit about it? Gary, you want to start?
I think a number of us have been to Croatia. It's in southeast Europe, and we went to Dubrovnik. How many of you have been to Dubrovnik? Oh yeah, lots of people, you know, beautiful place, huh? And we went to the Jewish synagogue there. Unfortunately, there are very few members, and they import a rabbi from Israel for the high holidays. And it was a really nice place. And we also went to Zagreb. Many of you been to Zagreb? That's a beautiful, classical European city. So,
Great. Would anyone else like to share? Dubrovnik is a beautiful walled city. Wonderful. Anyone else? Okay. So the Jewish presence in Croatia probably starts somewhere in the first centuries of CE. And what I mean by that, let's remember again. So when we're on the left side, we are in BCE, before the Common Era. Many of us grew up learning it as BC, before Christ, right? But academics have changed that now to BCE, before the Common Era. And then we have the first century, which overlaps the end of BCE into CE. And then to the right, we have CE, the Common Era. And so we are 2026 CE. We're all common, yes. We're all from the Common Era. Okay, so the history of Jews in Croatia probably starts in the early centuries of CE. There's a little bit of archaeology that will put a Jewish presence there from the 3rd century. And these were probably Jews who were traders and merchants. And they, we have our first sort of really big piece of corroboration in the 10th century. So the 10th century or the 900s, right? And it was a letter written for an introduction from a man named Mar Chasdai Amram. He was a Jewish merchant, and he was visiting the king, King Joseph, in his palace. King Joseph of the Khazar nation. So you'll see on the top left there the Khazars. And we've talked a little bit about the Khazars in past classes, but it's an important name for you to recognize. So the Khazar kingdom, the Khazars were basically a Turkic people. And they had a very large kingdom all through here. And they were located along the Silk Road. So there were many passengers. There were many traders who passed through going on the Silk Road. It was a trade route between the Byzantine Empire and Islam. And it encompassed basically southern Russia, what we now know as eastern Ukraine, what we now know as Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. Why this is important is because in our tradition we have a book called the Kuzari that was written around 1100 CE, just after the Khazar kingdom. And it's a very famous book, and it was written by the medieval poet Judah Halevi. And the reason why it's important is because the kingdom of the Khazars converted to Judaism. And Judaism became the official religion of the kingdom, the king and the kingdom. How did this happen? The Kuzari tells us, and this is sort of a fanciful tale of how this happened, that the king of the Khazars wanted to know what the true religion was. And so he brought in before him a Greek philosopher, a Christian cleric, a Muslim cleric, and a rabbi. And he asked each of them, tell me about your religion. Tell me about God. Tell me what you believe. And after listening to all four of them, this is obviously the very, very condensed version. After listening to all four of them, he decides that the rabbi is the one who is presenting the most truthful information about God and religion. And so he ends up converting, and the official religion of the kingdom becomes Judaism. Okay. Why is that important to us? It's really important to us because when we come to the question of the chosen people, that Jews are the chosen people, that's a hard question for all of us to wrestle with. Our texts absolutely say that God treasures us among all of his people. In other words, we're like at the top of the list. God loves the Jewish people more than everybody else. That is what our texts say. We have to understand that. And then we have to kind of try to figure out, well, what does that mean for us in 2026? Because we can't go around saying, ha, we're the chosen people and you are not, right? We can't do that. So we have to figure out some way to understand being the chosen people. You sing this every Friday night in Lecha Dodi at the end. Am Segula Boi Chala Boi Chala. Am Segula, the treasured people of God. Am, people, Segula, treasured. The treasured people of God. That's us. Okay, so there are many, many, many ideas about how to understand chosen people. My personal favorite is to say, and there's a midrash about this, it's like each of you has a collection of something. Some of you collect Yadro, some of you collect baseball cards, some of you collect, I don't know, whatever it is you collect. Giraffes, beautiful. I love giraffes. Hippopotami, you know, whatever. Elephants. And so all of your giraffes are beautiful to you. You love your entire collection of giraffes. But maybe one of the giraffes is just a little more special to you. Maybe it was the first one you got, or maybe it was given to you by a special friend, or whatever. Or you have your baseball card collection, you have your original Mickey Mantle card in there, right? You love all of your cards. They're all special to you, but there's one that's, okay. I like to think of us that way. God loves all the peoples that he created, and they're all important to him. But somehow the Jews they just mean a little more to him. Why? Because we were the first to recognize that he was God. So he's looking at his collection every day, and he says, oh, these guys, these guys, these guys. Oh, and the Jews. Oh, I love them. Okay, you know, that kind of thing. Because we can't say that we are a favored people. However, the Kuzari says we are a favored people. The Kuzari says that Jews have superior DNA compared to the rest of the planet. Yes, the Kuzari says that. And that's, well, when he's talking about Abraham and the genetic lines, right? He's talking, the Kuzari says Jews are superior to everybody else. That's the bottom line. That's a problem. That's a problem. But the Kuzari says it. So that's why it's important to know that name and that Judah Halevi wrote it. It was a very popular book, and it's very well known. So that's why I just want you to put it in the back of your heads. Kuzari. Oh, yeah, I know something about that. Yeah, medieval book, Jews are superior.
What year was that?
So the Kuzari was completed around 1100. Okay, very good. Did that cause a lot of anti-Semitism, that process? There was already so much anti-Semitism in 1100. What was 1100? First Crusade. 1096. It was 1100, okay? Because it's easy to remember. 1100 was the First Crusade, which was the bloodiest and worst of all of them, right? So there was already huge, huge anti-Jewish sentiment, starting with the Crusades. But yeah, I mean, that fed into it for sure, for sure. May you live in interesting times, the old Chinese curse. We were God's chosen people. We are interesting. Yes, I like to be intellectually honest with you, and because I think it's important. As intelligent adults, you need to know what our tradition says. Then you can make your own decision about how to understand it and how to explain it. But the text, our text, the Torah, they say, the Bible, it says, we are special, more special than everybody else. I thought we were special because we accept an unseen God. Well, I think that's the way to understand it now, that we were the first ones. So God feels a special love for us. Not that he doesn't love everybody else, or that he loves us more, or that we're the chosen ones, but that God has a special feeling when he thinks about the Jews. It's a very difficult question in 2026. Lana.
I have a slightly different take on that. There's two aspects of it. First of all, in Exodus, if you follow my laws, you will be my treasured people. So it's conditional. But two, at the time that part of the Bible was being written, the people, the Jewish people it was a tribal God. Everybody had their own tribes. Every tribe had their own gods. And in the concept of the people at the time, it was, God was their God. And of course, if you're their God, are you going to treasure any other people?
Okay, that's really an excellent answer. It really is. So remember, at the time that our Bible is put together, the various books of the Bible, especially the Torah, and the early material in the Torah, we are in a situation where Adonai is the God of the Israelites, a situation called monolatry. God is the national God of the Israelites. He's not the God of all the peoples of the world, just the God of the Israelites. When does that change? Good. It changes basically during the Babylonian exile. We make the move from the national God of the Israelites to the God of all creation, of all creations. And you'll recall that Habakkuk is the prophet who says that God says, I sent the Babylonians in to destroy the temple. And the big move came, well, wait a minute, wait. God sent the Babylonians in? What? How does God, send the Babylonians in? Oh, maybe God is the God of the Babylonians too. In which case, God is the God of everybody. God is not just our God. God is the God of everybody. Because if God can manipulate the Babylonians to affect a change in another civilization, then God is the universal God of the world. He's not just the God of the Israelites. Zisel.
What did I want to say? I forgot. How embarrassing. How embarrassing.
So God is the God of everyone.
Right.
Habakkuk.
Yeah. It started like that, but it's not what I wanted to say. Yes, I got it. It's complicated, you see? Well, in ancient times, the gods of the people who lived throughout the world were tied to the place where they lived. That's why these conquering armies tried to move people out of their lands and put them elsewhere. So their gods, since were tied to the land, remained in the land, and they were godless. Now, the great discovery of Judaism is our God, and now for the world has accepted that concept as well, is not tied to the land. It's a God that is not here, but it is here. Somebody who we worship, an entity that we worship, not a tree, not the grass, not anything else. And that's a great leap forward.
That's absolutely true.
Okay, it's quick. And to add to that, in ancient times, if you were conquered by another group, their god is stronger than your god, and you would assimilate into the new. You would have been becoming a Babylonian at that time. But one of the things that is different about our God is that he traveled with us. We were down in Egypt, and he moved with us. So this idea that if we move to Babylon, he's still with us. And that would trigger the idea of a more universal God.
Yes, that's true. The rabbis envision God as going into exile with the people. Why would that be an important consideration? I'll offer you an idea from Rabbi Mark. So the rabbis were competing with early Christianity. And early Christianity said what? You can't say God is love, but almost. In Christianity, you can almost say that. The essence of God is love. Christian clerics, I've discussed this many times, they'll say, no, not exactly, but sort of, kind of, almost. That's definitely not true for the Jewish God. The essence of Adonai is not love. It's not. And Maimonides said, you can't even talk about the essence of God. We don't know anything about it, zero. And so you can only talk about what God is not. You can't really start a sentence with God is, because you don't know. We don't know. Okay, having said that, the message of Christianity is a very loving message, right? Jesus will accept you. God will bring you into the kingdom of heaven. It's going to be a wonderful time after you die, et cetera, et cetera. That was very attractive at that time in history. The rabbis were competing with that message. And the rabbis were competing with a God, a God of the Old Testament, that many people saw as harsh and vindictive and punishing. So you'll recall, wow, Croatia. I guess not. Okay, we'll get there. Remember that early Christian movements were competing with mainstream Christianity and the Gnostics. Who were the Gnostics? The Gnostics were early Christians who believed in a dual cosmology, that there was Jesus in the heaven responsible for everything that was good, and there was a demiurge, a bad God, a lesser bad God who is responsible for all of the problems on earth. Now, Marcion, the Christian cleric Marcion, said that the demiurge was the Jewish God. Now, it became a very problematic statement. It's known as the Marcion heresy, and it was not accepted by early Christianity. It was not. But the Gnostics did. There was a strain that condemned the Jewish God as punishing and harsh and vindictive. And so, when the rabbis say, God went into exile with his people, what does that show us about our God? It shows about us a loving and caring and compassionate God, right? It doesn't show a vindictive, God did ask the Babylonians to come in and destroy the temple to punish the Jews. But ultimately, what it shows is that God is a forgiving, caring, loving God. And I think that's part of the reason why God ends up going into exile, according to the rabbis, that God does have a very caring, loving side. Before Cecil, come.
There's 3 points that I want to make now because so many people talk that I got other things. Okay, 1, God possesses good and bad. I just want to say that before I say my other ones. Second is before the Babylonian destruction of the temple, God manipulated Pharaoh's heart. Yes. So that wasn't the first manipulation. No. The Assyrian, yes, you are correct, 100% correct. Okay, so it should have been known even before that God was involved with all peoples, not just the Israelites. And then you may not even want to touch this, but it's a question that came into my mind when we talked, when the chosen people, my mind wandered, and I was thinking, so then after the Messiah comes, what happens to the notion of us being the chosen people?
Everyone is chosen by then. Yes, I think Joette's right. Yes, Cecil, did you want to say something? Yes, that's a good question. Yes, but remember, it's someone from our tradition who heralds and is the Messiah. Let's talk about that in a second. Yes.
What I want to compare all these ideas is what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Did God bring the people, or did the people bring God? I chose to believe that the people brought God. And God traveled in the hearts of the people.
Very nice, very nice. You and Heschel would have gotten along very, very well. Very well. Heschel was one of our very, 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 very at the highest thinkers in our tradition. And Heschel's in the 20th century, thank you. And what Heschel said is that we either embrace God or we push God away. And when we push God away, we send God into exile. And by our actions, by not following God's ways. Okay, 2 things. Like I said, I wanted to go into creation, but you know what? This is really important stuff. So we'll get to Croatia when we get to it. So, God is responsible for good and evil. huge statement in our tradition. Why? Because I was just telling you, the Gnostics, borrowing from the Zoroastrian tradition, said that there is one God who is responsible for the good, and then a lesser God who is responsible for the bad. That is how the Zoroastrians explained evil in the world. There were two gods. One was good, one was bad, and the bad one brought evil into the world. Okay, that's really easy for all of us to say, okay, I get it, there's a bad God. If we say in our tradition, you know what? Sometimes God is abusive, sometimes God is evil, sometimes God is a bad God. We could say, oh, okay, well, that explains it. That's how bad things happen. Because sometimes God is good, and sometimes God is bad. Okay, but Eileen's reaction is the reaction that most of you will have, which is like, well, I don't like that. I don't want that to be true. I'm not good with that. I'm not good with that. God isn't bad. God isn't evil sometimes. No, I'm not good with that. Okay, good. He may not do anything, but he's not evil. Okay. And that's the essential problem with the idea of good and evil in our tradition. Because if God doesn't do the evil, but our tradition says he does, he created evil. Where does it say that? Good question. Isaiah says it, I create good and evil, I, God, do it all. The book of Lamentations, which we'll read over the summer, says, out of the mouth of is it not out of the Most High that good and evil are created? So God creates evil. He created evil, absolutely, unequivocally in our tradition. God created evil. Why is that important? Because the Zoroastrians say the good God is up there doing good and the bad God is doing evil. But the rabbis say, oh no, well, no, cannot be. No, absolutely not. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. God is one. So God has to do both the good, and he is responsible for the bad too. And we bless God for the good, and we bless God for the bad. We absolutely do. Zisel? Just following up what I just said just now. There's an old Spanish saying,
Dios aprieta, pero no ahoga. Meaning, God squeezes you, but it does not,
break you,
you know,
choke, strangulate. God squeezes you, but he doesn't strangle you. So, this is really important for us to yes, Rosalie.
No, you mentioned Zoroastrianism quite a bit, and that was a religion of Babylon at the time. So I think the whole point of the Babylonians is to bring in all these people and get them to assimilate. But there's a portion of the Jews that, the Jews seem to have taken on some of the teachings of Zoroastrianism, and that's what you're saying. So, but I also want to say that when the Jews went back, that was because the Babylonians were overthrown by the Persians, by Cyrus, and Cyrus was a brilliant king and allowed the Jews to go back. So I think the Jews probably had a good relationship with the administration in Persia.
Yes, and what was the religion of Persia? Zoroastrianism. So you have one civilization that practices Zoroastrianism, which is conquered by another civilization that practices Zoroastrianism. And it is, in fact, the exiles who bring back ideas from Zoroastrianism to Judea, Judah. When they come back, after Cyrus lets them back. This is how we get the angels and the demons in our tradition. All throughout our Bible, except until we get to Job, the angels and the demons don't have names. The angels are human figures who we are told are sent, they're malachim, they're messengers from God. We don't have demons. We have Satan when we get to Job, but it's Ha-Satan, the prosecuting attorney, the one who condemns Job. He doesn't have a name. He will get a name. You know, in modern parlance, Satan comes from Ha-Satan, but that's not his name. He gets a name when he gets to the Talmud, and his name is Samael. Samael is Satan's proper name in the Talmud. But we get all of these angels and demons once we get past the Babylonian exile and we get to the rabbis. The rabbis were very uncomfortable with angels and demons. Why? Because earlier tradition had said that angels and demons had a lot of power. They could challenge God. And the rabbi said, oh, no, absolutely not. No. Nobody challenges God. Nobody's even close to challenging God. So what did the rabbis do? They clipped the wings, so to speak, of the angels. So that in rabbinic tradition, angels can only do what God tells them to do. They have to follow his orders, and that's it. So God is up in the heavens, and he says, Gabriel, I have a job for you. Get down there and make this happen. Michael, I need you to take care of this. Make it happen. We don't get our 4 archangels until well after the Babylonian exile. Who are our 4 archangels? Uriel, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Good. Michael is the angel that God sends when he needs to send mercy somewhere. Gabriel, when he needs to punish. So when Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed, our tradition looking back tells us that the men who were there, that was Gabriel, who was there presiding over the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Raphael, when he needs to send healing into the world, and Uriel, when he needs to send light into the world. Okay? Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and Raphael. My favorite teaching on these archangels is when you say Kaddish, at the end of Kaddish, what's the last line? Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. But if you think about it, it doesn't make sense. Oseh shalom bimromav, the one who makes peace in the heavens. And you all say, okay, fine. Why does God have to make peace in the heavens? God lives in the heavens. What's going on up there that God has to make peace? Why is there a problem up where God lives? Yes, the angels are fighting. But almost the angels are fighting. Almost. Gabriel is the angel of punishment, of strength. And what is Gabriel's essence? According to the rabbis, it's fire. Fire, right? Gabriel's essence is fire because he punishes. When God needs something taken care of, Gabriel, get down there and make it happen. His essence is fire. Michael, on the other hand, he's mercy. What's his essence? Water. So now you got fire and water in the heavens. Fire and water can't coexist. So what does God do? Oseh shalom bimromav. He makes peace in the heavens so that Gabriel and Michael can coexist. I love that teaching. I love that teaching. Okay. All right. So, any other questions about this particular thing before? Yes. I did start out with Croatia. I did. Okay. Let me see what time it is. All right. I'm coming. What I was curious about was the Khazars were what? Were the important people in Croatia. Modern day Croatia was part of the Khazar kingdom at that time.
And then apparently it became the Khazars a century later.
No. The Khazars had a kingdom. And the Khazar kingdom, before that it was a cognate, anyway, the kingdom. It was a very large kingdom, of which the present-day country of Croatia was part of that kingdom. So, my point in bringing up the Khazars not only was to teach you about the Khuzari again, but also to remember that in the 10th century, we have a letter introducing Mar Chastei Amram, who was a Jew, to have an audience with the king of the Khazars. So, the Jewish presence in that area and the Jewish presence in what is today Croatia, we definitely have archaeological evidence from the 10th century. So we know that Jews were there in 900s. Yes, Isel. Yes. Was Croatia part of the Silk Road? The Khazar kingdom was. That the tiny specific area that we call Croatia today, I'm not sure whether traders were going through Croatia on their way through the Silk Road. But the kingdom of the Khazars, which included the present-day Croatia, was definitely part of the Silk Road. So traders moved back and forth.
Jerusalem was part of the Silk Road.
Say again?
I thought Jerusalem was part of the Silk Road.
I thought Jerusalem was part of the Silk Road.
I mean, through the Middle East, that was the same, because here you have an ocean, namely the Adriatic, that made it very difficult to get from Italy to the east.
Right. What does everybody think? Jerusalem, Silk Road? Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. No. The Silk Road was further east. North and east. Yes, Zisel. Absolutely. Very good, very good. That Jerusalem was in fact a very important city, and that if it was not on the Silk Road, which I do not believe it was, that it was an important city for people to get to on the side as they were traveling. Of course, you know, ancient people had to trade in lots of spices, and there were, spices were very, very expensive and worth a lot. If you want, for instance, if you wanted to get saffron, ooh, you were paying like a gazillion dollars or trading a gazillion things to get saffron from India. It's still the most expensive spice. Yeah. So spices were very, very, very lucrative and very expensive. Okay. So during the 13th and 14th centuries, the Jews of Croatia flourished. It was a very good time. 1200s, 1300s, very nice. By 1456, so we're a little bit before the expulsion, 1456, the rulers in Croatia felt that the Jews had become too numerous. There were too many Jews now. It was a good place for Jews to be, but there were too many. So the Jews were forced out. And we have, following that, basically 200 years of no records whatsoever. We have no idea what happened to the Jews of Croatia until the 15th century. Where did they go when they were forced out? They went to all the neighboring countries. During that time, Janos Capistrano, made a number of sermons talking about host desecration. What is host desecration? Anybody have any ideas? Joette?
Taking the wafer and not using it for its intended purpose.
Good. Taking the wafer and not using it for its intended purpose. And you ask, wafer? What wafer? Remember that during the Eucharist, in a Catholic Mass, congregants come up, they place the wafer, and then they drink the wine, and this is the blood and the body of Jesus. And it's called a transubstantiation, that wafer and the wine actually become. And so Jews were accused of destroying or hurting or using it for another purpose. He made this Janos Capistrano made appeals for forced conversions, for mob violence, and the pressure to expel Jews. In the 15th century, late 1492, there was increased persecution of Jews after the Reconquista. And I'm going to end class with this because we're almost at time or past. Reconquista. What was the Reconquista? 700 to 1492, basically. Yes, Cecil.
That's when the Spanish started in Asturias, up in the north, started fighting the Moors, who had taken most of Spain. They could never take Asturias. So the Asturians started to war against the Moors, and slowly but surely captured more territory and people that joined them, and eventually the Reconquista when Spain was all Spanish.
Good, good. So, Reconquista, what does it sound like in English? Reconquest, okay? And that's exactly what it was. The Moors and the Almohads, the fanatic Muslim sect, and the Moors had been in charge of Spain for a long time, since 700. And then what happens is the Catholic forces then group together and retake Spain from the Muslim rulers. It ends in 1492 with the installation of Ferdinand and Isabella. And Ferdinand had been king of the kingdom of Aragon. Isabella had been queen of the kingdom of Castile. And so what happens is, which were the two largest kingdoms in Spain at that time, and so their marriage then joins Aragon and Castile, the two largest kingdoms, and they take over rule in Spain. They bring in the Inquisition right away. And even though Croatia was not part of the Spanish Empire, there were a number of Spanish Jews who fled there, and the idea of persecuting Jews spread even outside Spain. So there was increased persecution of Jews during the 15th century, the late 15th century, 1492, and into the 16th and 17th century.
What happened to the fact that the Khazars, not the empire,
Kingdom.
the kingdom, were all Jews? I mean, how could they be persecuted if the whole kingdom was Jewish?
How could they be persecuted if the whole kingdom of the Khazars was Jewish? The Khazar kingdom did not last a long time. So the Khuzari was written in 1100, but shortly after that, I'll get you the exact date. The Khazar kingdom is overrun, and it ceases to exist. So by the time we get to this situation here, the Khazar kingdom is no longer in existence. No. That's a very good question. Very good question. Okay, everyone. So I will look forward to moving through Croatia a little more next week. But we talked about important stuff. I mean, it comes up, and we take detours, and it's important stuff. And so, have a wonderful week, everyone. When does our Passover break start? So we do not have classes April 1 and April 8. Okay, very good. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you next week.
You know what? It's worth getting up. It's all part of learning. Have you started your class?
I haven't yet, and they're just taking their sweet time getting my paperwork all situated. I mean, I am the guy, according to them. And they kept telling me, well, we need one more signature on your paper. They wanted me to start in the middle of April, but I'm going to tell them now, it's like, there's no way. I mean, with Passover coming up, you want me to put together an entire class? We'll have to do it.
I tell you, I worked for the community college, and she worked for the county. Welcome to the world of bureaucracy.
Yeah, they go really slow.
Yeah.
Last week when we were talking about Joseph, I was thinking about it afterwards. Joseph,
You know what?
because at the writing systems at the time, hieroglyphics, and it takes 20 years to become a scribe. And the royalty did not, while they were all illiterate, they were scribes to write things down. I wanted to say last week. It's today, I think. Okay, well, my son was wrong. Very good, though. Anyway, when you mentioned that it would be very interesting if the Israelis were part of the new government, or, you know, they were working together. That's when I said the people were shouting, "Thank you, Bibi." It's not about Bibi, but the people there are grateful to the Israelis. Therefore, the likelihood of that happening is greater than I had never thought about it. But, my reaction was on that line is that, I can see them working together.
It starts with thinking, you know,
All right, everyone grab, make sure you have a book.
And it was thousands and thousands of people that we were talking about. The whole amazing.
of course. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. So I was late because I was doing art with the preschool, and a little girl drew a picture of me. That's me. There's two eyes, a nose, a mouth, and that's my beard. So anyway, this is good. Okay. No, she drew it. I didn't draw it, you know. She did a beautiful job. It really captures my essence. It's actually the best thing that you could, you know. Yeah, I am smiling. Well, you know. Okay. So good morning, everyone. We are going to begin. Oh, maybe. Okay. Maybe Warren and Melinda are not here today, are they? No. Okay. I hope they're okay. All right. So we'll make a blessing over the Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And may the Torah that we study today be inspiring for all of us. So last week we took a detour, as the world took a detour, and we spoke about Israel. We could do periodic check-ins, but I feel like if I spend another day doing Israel, then that's all we're going to do for the rest of the semester. And so, like, the update is there's more war. I mean, that's the update. Like, we're all aware of it. And so we had, before we took the detour for the war, we were in the middle, and of course we're still thinking about the brave men and women who've been in service to the United States, as well as the brave men and women who are in service to the IDF. And we're thinking about all the innocent people who are spending time in bomb shelters and in Israel and also in the other Arab countries. Anyway, okay, so we are...
17.
Yeah, so thank you, Ernie, for asking. So our middle son, Lev,
was supposed to leave 2 days ago to go for 3 months in Israel. They'll give us an update next week, and we'll see, I mean, there's really nothing to, there's nothing more to, he's plotting, but there's nothing that we can do. There's no flights to Israel. It's a war. Yeah. So there's no, because of the war. Yeah. Right, exactly. So right now they're only doing emergency flights back into Israel so that people who are separated from their families or people who have critical government or army work positions or people who are just stranded outside of the country can come back in the country. But people who are tourists are not a high priority, and understandably so. What's that? Oh, yeah. Sure.
So we were in Israel in January for a wedding. And then after that, there was a wedding in Toronto from my kid's best friend's son, okay? My son-in-law went to the wedding. He got stuck there during the war, couldn't get back, and he wanted to get back home after the wedding. So he flew Air Canada to Rome, and from Rome he flew to Egypt. And in Egypt, he got on a bus and drove 5 hours to get home to Israel. And that's how he made it home. And one of his kids, she's at Aisha Torah, the girls' seminary there. She's like a house mother. And all the girls are all from America there. And when the war started, they wanted their kids home, a lot of them. So they did the same thing. They went to Egypt. And from Egypt, they get out, maybe by boat, whatever way they get out, and to go back home.
Well, we're glad that everyone's home safe. And so some people want to go back. Some people want to go. So, it's when you have a regime that's intentionally targeting civilian and infrastructure, you have to be very careful before you can just open up the airport. So the airport is not open for regular use. And there are similar stories, like the D. Toledo High School kids were there, and they had to, be evacuated through Egypt and on a bus and then on a plane into Rome, and then, so everyone just does the best that they can. But as I said last week, that when my son's presence will not be a detriment to Israeli society, that's when he will go, right? Right now, they don't need another tourist to take someone else to take care of. They have their own stuff to take care of. But if the program's still running and the infrastructure is back and the airport's open, then he'll go. I'll keep you informed. But thank you for asking, Ernie. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're in the middle of, we read the two different narratives of the Genesis of the world story, right? We read the more structured story that was, the days of the week, day 1, day 2, and it was sort of, not to be critical, but like more of an engineer's kind of story. It was very organized and tight. It was short on detail, but very methodical and tightly constructed. Efficient with its words is probably the better way of saying it. And then we read the story of, the construction of Adam, and then subsequent, and she hasn't been named yet, but a woman. And we noticed and we compared those two narratives, and we noticed how there was, how there were things that were different orders, and it just felt like a very different kind of tale. I like looking at the Torah as an anthology of our people, and so within the anthology, there's two different creation stories.
Rabbi, so in the documentary hypothesis, so there seem to be four, according to that, four different authors, and
Yeah.
there were two different authors for the two different stories.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Joette was just pointing out that this conforms to the documentary hypothesis, where there's different authors and different, and we talked a little bit about that as well. Okay. How come Lilith? So that's a good. So Lilith is added. Well, it either predates. It's hard to argue why something is not there. I don't think it's an oops. I'm not sure it's an. I'm not sure. Like, I think it either dates the collection of the material or was intentionally omitted. In that particular, with Lilith, I'm not exactly sure. I don't know offhand if just the creation of the Lilith stories post-dates the canonization of the story. I just don't know. But what I do think that they're trying to do here is the redactor, or the peoples who put this all together, are trying to incorporate narratives that would have spoken to the widest group of people. And you have different, think about it, bringing a nation together. Look, watch the news in this country. Turn on two very different stations, and it's like you're living in two different countries, right? And when MSNBC and Fox News, you'd think like you were living in different places, and so the task of bringing a people together is not an easy one. Most likely, the Torah was canonized or finalized, or at least mostly finalized, after the Babylonian exile. So the people come back after the Babylonian exile. So let's just kind of go through history. You have Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Joseph, go down to Egypt. Moses come up from Egypt, wandering around the wilderness, getting the Ten Commandments, going over into the land. Moses says goodbye, I'm not invited into the land. He passes away at 120. The people then go into the land for the book of Joshua. The book of Joshua and Judges, which is the second section of the Hebrew Bible, provides two very different accounts of what the reconquest of that land looks like. The book of Judges, everything goes, the book of Judges, the conquest goes, the book of Joshua, the conquest goes perfectly. We annihilate everyone. It's like, you remember in the early 80s, there was that movie Rambo with Sylvester Stallone. It's like Rambo, like we did the Rambo on them. Like none of us get hurt. We all like level them and everything works out. The book of Judges, in contrast, is, they're oppressing us, the Midianites and this one and that one and the Canaanites, and all sorts of bad things are happening. And you have to read those as two kind of like different takes of what is happening. But suffice to say that the people had not yet come together. They only come together under the establishment of the monarchy, the Davidic monarchy. They gave Saul a chance. That didn't work out. There's a Davidic monarchy. Right after the Davidic monarchy, there's Solomon. Solomon builds the temple. Solomon dies. Solomon's sons, the empire splits. There's the northern kingdom of, no, Judah's Israel, and the southern kingdom of Judah. The northern kingdom is by far the more powerful one and is the more cosmopolitan one. But they have one thing against them, which is they are neighbors to the Assyrians, who don't, and then the Babylonians. So the Assyrians conquer the northern kingdom, and then a lot of people from the north flee south, even though the north and the south had fought an awful lot. Like, if you look in the later books in the Bible, they're fighting each other all of the time. It's not like, oh, Am Yisrael Chai, like, we're all together, one nation of Israel. Like, if you look in the Bible, they're killing each other left and right. Now, when push came to shove, though, with the Assyrians knocking on their door, a lot of the people from the north went to the south, and therefore maintains the reason for why we need to preserve their national narratives. Because they came south, but they came with their stories, they came with their cultural norms. And when the people come south, you sort of have like, you could see differences in these people. And so after they go to Babylon, after the Babylonians destroyed the temple, it's hard to get people to move back, first of all, because it's prosperous in Babylon. Reminds us of the American Jewish community. Like, Theodore Herzl is like, come on, if you will it, Ein Zo Agadah, it's not a legend. Come on, everyone. And the Americans say, no, we're good. We'll stay in New Jersey. Beverly Hills is doing just fine. Northern suburbs of Chicago, we don't need to move to, some fakakta land with these neighbors of yours. So anyway, when they come back from the Babylonian exile, they engage a project of building national unity. And then one of those projects is the reading of sacred text. And from there, they take different stories from the different regions and they mold them together in order to create a national narrative. And so even though they don't exactly match up, or even in places they contradict one another, that's what we're dealing with. And so that's the presence of these two creation stories. And now we move on from the, right now we have man who's placed in the garden, and he's free to eat except from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, but he can't eat from that. And then God says, Lo tov heyot ha'adam levado, it's not good for a man to be alone. And then they make a helper, which is the woman, and who's fashioned out of Adam's side. And then it says, Al ken ya'azav ish et aviv, and therefore a man leaves his father ve'et imo and his mother ve'davak be'ishto, and clings to his wife ve'hayu levasar echad, and they become one in flesh. This is the biblical evidence for why you should butt out of your kids' marriages. I'm being serious here. I'm on page 17, but I just made a joke. You didn't laugh. So anyway, this is the biblical evidence for butting out of your kid's marriage. It's saying that your son's first phone call, Boychik's first phone call, should not be to his mother, oy vey, but should be to his wife. That the closest relationship should be between a husband and wife. And that's what the Bible tries to establish. So even then, the Bible is wary of the overprotective, invasive Jewish mother. Okay, so that is like the very first rule of the Bible. Jewish parents, mind your own business with your kids' marriages. I can't tell you though how many times I have to use that. Like in serious, like I get phone calls. They're like, "Oh, can you?" I try and like, "Can you, Rabbi? I'm having a trouble with my kid. Can you?" I'm like, "Well, like your son's 50 years old. You can talk to me." Like, like. He's not a kid, He doesn't need to like ride his Schwinn over to the synagogue. Like he's good. We'll give him like a snack, milk and cookies. He's an adult, and so it's funny how I try as a rabbi to live that where especially when kids are getting married. Like I don't deal with the parents. I say to the parents, your children can call me if they want me to officiate, but I'm not dealing with them through you. Like that's a bad paradigm to start. So, and I know that looking now as having kids who are getting slightly older, they haven't left the house yet. I know it's hard because you see your kids, like I'm texting with my son. This is online, like, he's not doing a great job in this English essay. And I know he's not doing a great job, and he's insistent that he's doing a great job. He's not. And I'm hovering, but he needs to fix it or he needs to suffer the consequences. So he's 15. So he's about to suffer the consequences, and because you have to learn to take accountability for your own actions. Well, it's not a question of passing. He'll pass the class. The question is, look, this is something that we all experience as parents. Where to draw the line? Where do you step out? In fact, that's the whole story of the Hebrew Bible. No, it's God and humanity. Where does God step in and where does God step out? In Christianity, and I went over this a few times, Christianity is the ultimate helicopter parent. Not out of badness, like out of love. The human project becomes irredeemable and needs divine rescuing. So God steps in. It's like a parent who says, my child is not able to do this, and therefore steps in. And God gives God's Son as an offering for all of the sins. That's a beautiful comment. It's like, wow, what a parent steps in. But Judaism's vision is different. Judaism's vision is not the helicopter. Judaism's vision is God keeps stepping back. God's struggling with it, but God steps back. So why am I not helping him? I helped him some, and I told him where I think his essay is weak, and he has told me that he disagrees with me, and we'll see what happens. Right, yeah. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it'll hurt a little bit, but yeah. I'll just tell you something. Adrian, I'll just be honest with you, it's a bad essay. It's not good. The question is, and this is something I fear, and this is a whole nother subject, and maybe I could be wrong here. I think the standards of what is acceptable or what is considered excellent work have really, really gone down. And so, like, I don't know in what universe this essay gets an A. But if he does get an A, then he's correct. I mourn for our future because this essay is not an A. And if that's the kind of work that gets an A, I am too critical. I know that about myself. But the subject is the use of monsters in literature. All right. So, well, I'll fill you in next week what he gets on the essay. You'll all ask, So I would say, I'd give him a B minus, maybe a B. We'll see what happens. Yeah, it's not great. It's private school. I'm not paying for a B. You know, like, you can go to public school and get a B. You know, I worked too hard. All my money. I can't believe this is online. Is this being recorded? Wait. No. Kids, I'm okay as a parent. I really do, Adrian, like I do mean this. This is, you got all my therapists, you'll send me a bill after. I am okay as long as I think that they are trying. I don't care if he gets a C, but he worked his tush off for it. I'm okay with that. I really am. Here, there's, that's not exactly what's happening. So I feel like in our society, and look, you're from a different generation than I am, I feel like we are in a society that if it's not quick and easy, and if it's not short and like, no, the world is not accessible, and all analysis cannot be captured in a stupid video online that's 90 seconds long or a headline. Like, read the article or read the book and understand that there's shades of gray and nuance. But these phones, like and you know what? I see it with older people too. I see it with older people. Like, there was one time a few weeks ago where I saw all of you. You were all on your phones in between, and you were all like comatose zombies. That's what we are with our phones in our hands, instead of like putting the stupid thing down and talking to one another, right? Like, whatever's going on in this device is not so important. And I feel like it's come at a great price where we expect instant answers, instant gratification. We've lost nuance. We've lost attention to detail. We've lost patience. We are, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not very hopeful. I'm not. I think that the phone is, the phone, I remember reading a Wall Street op-ed about it when the phones came out, that how phones were not good because they would tether you to your workplace. And that is absolutely 100% true. No one feels any compunction about texting me at 10 o'clock at night. Now, if someone, God forbid, okay, you can text me at 10 o'clock at night, but really, do you, So no one calls anymore. Calling, and by the way, like, that's another thing with communication. So of like relationships, like I'm really worried about the texture of relationships, because when everything is done on a text, then you don't look at someone, you don't talk to someone anymore. And some people, they're like, oh, it's a hard conversation. All the more reason that you should do it in person. You don't get what? You don't get any inflection in voice, you don't pick up on any, you reading emotion into it, or there's no empathy. So like someone who's like ending a relationship, like, kids are learning how to, but it's not even kids, it's adults too. They're learning how to be with one another and how to end relationships and how to engage one another. But I don't think texting is the way to do that. I think you talk to one another. And so I'm worried. Okay, but I shouldn't worry yet, because none of this bad stuff has happened, because we are still in the Garden of Eden. Yes, Susie. Who are Adam's parents? So right, so it seems like right Adam doesn't seem to have Adam doesn't. I mean, where does Adam come from? God. Well, and that is the most important, one of the most important, most important statements of the entire Bible is the creation of mankind, where God makes, where God makes mankind and makes mankind in the image of God. Now, if you're asking like where, who's right, so like that is the most important theological statement of the Bible. Okay, we're moving on here. So on P. Right. So you don't, here's what I would encourage you. Don't be a biblical literalist. Right? Like a biblical literalist. Right? I don't think the text is, if you want to, you're right, you got them. Like you're a teacher. You got it. Yes. There is no father and mother. How could he leave his father and mother? The text is making a statement. It's about what their expectations are for society. If you hold this text to consistency is, it will fail, right? It says many things, but it is not consistent. Yeah, Bridget. That's right, exactly. This is an editorial on where relationships should be. Right, exactly.
Look at the commentary for verse 24, and it'll give that.
The commentary for what verse?
Verse 24, hence.
On for
17.
It's not part of the narrative, it says, but introduces an observation on the part of the narrative.
Let's see what you're. Oh, ends.
Yeah,
I was just reading it.
yeah.
It's
Oh.
not part of the narrative.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay, good. It's like based on, right. It's saying because of this happened, going forward, I'll Cain. Yeah, but that almost is like making it need to be a biblical literalist, and I just don't read the text like that. I never have. We can punch a lot of holes through it, but this is written. It's an origin story. It's a story. Okay. Okay, so the end of chapter 2 and the beginning of chapter 3. The two of them were naked, the man and his wife, yet they felt no shame. Now, how would you describe humanity up until now? Innocent, yeah. Yeah, how would you describe humanity? Zissel? Lack of wisdom, good. Lack of wisdom, lack of sophistication. Oh, animals, right? Like, they're not quite developed, right? We're watching the maturation of humanity. And I would argue, I'm not the first to argue this is not original, that we're not really human beings yet until something critical happens. And like well, spoiler alert, they're going to eat from a tree. They're not supposed to eat from. And when that happens, that's going to be, that I think changes everything. Here, we'll read it. Look at it. Now, there's also something here about the serpent, which is something interesting I looked at this morning. For the serpent here, our text is in some ways a polemic against ancient Near Eastern texts, which some other cultures elevated the status of a serpent and gave it supernatural powers. And notice that the serpent here doesn't have supernatural powers. It's a duplicitous creature, but it's not supernatural, and then it's literally cut down to size. But it's in some ways the serpent here is levels less than in other cultures. So anyway, now the serpent was the shrewdest of all the wild beasts that the Lord had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you shall not eat of any tree of the garden?" The woman replied to the serpent. Well, anyway, what's hard about that question? Did God really say you shall not eat of any tree of the garden? Good. And also, why would this person be disqualified from giving testimony? She wasn't there. She wasn't a direct, this is hearsay. She was a rib. She wasn't out yet. No, first Adam was said, here are the rules of the garden. Don't eat from, this, and you gotta. So anyway, it's relying on the woman. So the woman must have learned something from the man, right? But she is no direct. And even this, look at what she says. The woman replied to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the other trees of the garden. It is only about fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said, you shall not eat of it or touch it, lest you die." God didn't say that. See, this is Susie. Like, God said nothing about touching. God just said, don't eat it. So this is the first game of telephone in the history of humanity, or of this is why husband and wife need to cling to one another, because even here the husband's still a poor communicator, right? Even here the husband's still getting the messages, can't give the message right. Like, where's this? There's God to the man and the man presumably to the wife, but then what she says is not what God said. Okay, we may eat of the tree, it is only about the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden that God said you shall not eat of it or touch it lest you die. And the serpent said to the woman, "You're not going to die. But God knows that as soon as you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like divine beings who know good and bad." Let me read it through, and then you'll give some reactions. I'm on page 19. Verse 6. When the woman saw that the tree was good for eating and a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was as desirable as a source of wisdom, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave some to her husband, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they perceived that they were naked. They sewed together fig leaves and made themselves loincloths. Let's pause there. Reactions. I'll repeat it, what your comment is. Just say any reactions to the text thus far.
Did he know he was eating from that tree?
Good. So Lana wants to be his defense attorney. He can plead ignorance here. She gave me a plate. I didn't know where it came from. It had fruit on it. How was I supposed to know it was the fruit from the one tree in the middle? It could have been any one of these trees. Is there ignorance? Or does the text just not say that maybe there was a distinguishing characteristic of the tree, or she said to him, this is the tree, or he realized that something was different? But it seems to me, at least, that in the court of American law, that he's got a plausible defense here. He could just say, I didn't know. And by the way, he's going to throw her under the bus in just a minute. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So much for sticking together, which is like the first, devak, to your wife. I'll criticize him in a second. Okay, other points or other things that you see in the text. Zissel.
snake to eat snake.
Right.
Says, hey, you're not going to die. No, it's alive. Yeah. Okay, that's the counter to what they do. God says, do not eat of that. Well, that's the reason. He didn't tell them the reason,
Yeah.
but the snake says, yeah, you can eat.
That's right. You can eat. So I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but the moral argument is a little bit hard. For here, I'm going to poke at God now. God says, don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So if a human being can't discern good from evil, then how did she know that what she was doing was wrong? Even though God said, don't do it, she still didn't have the capacity to understand right from wrong. So therefore, how could she be held accountable if she didn't have the capacity to understand? It's only after she eats does she have the capacity to understand when you are told by an authority not to do something that is wrong and you shouldn't do it. So is she accountable for this or not? Maybe you can get her off the hook too.
It's like if a little kid, you tell a little kid, don't do it, because you're the adult, you know, and they do it anyway, and it's like, okay, now I know.
That's right. Sometimes they need to learn from their own mistakes, like with their bad English essays that they're about to hand in to their teachers. Right? Like maybe, right? You know? Go ahead. Oh yeah, wait, hold on one thing, just with the, never says apple. In fact, it's for sure it's not an apple. That's a it's a medieval Christian innovation. And I think, if I remember correctly, that it's mostly influenced by medieval art. Like with the Renaissance artists, when they were making the depiction again, they make it an apple. But here it's clear it's not an apple. If anything, it's probably a fig. Why do I say it's a fig leaf? Right. And so like when they notice they're naked, the first thing you do when you're naked and someone walks in on you is you grab the thing closest. Right? Isn't that true? So, I mean, not, you know, so they grab fig leaves. So presumably they're standing right next to fig tree. But it doesn't say anything. For sure it's not an apple. The question is, what is it? Bridget?
God made a mistake. I mean, I don't have any kids, but when you make a threat or when you say a consequence, you're supposed to follow through. And he said you would die right away, and he didn't follow through.
Totally. In some ways is the snake. So Bridget said, God made a mistake in Parenting 101 because God said, all right, so let's take a look. Did God say that? Yeah, so, oh, good, right. So there's a good question here. So here, look back on page 15. Hold the page that you're on. Ume'etz hada'at tov v'ra, of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, lo tochal mimenu, don't eat from it, ki b'yom achalcha mimenu mot tamut. Well, I don't know. It seems to me b'yom achalcha means like on that day that you eat from it, you will surely die. No, it says on that day. Yeah, so the English is not it's a good translation, but the Hebrew says b'yom achalcha, which means on the day that you eat mimenu, from it, mot tamut, you will certainly die. Right. So maybe he's got a few hours left. You know, he's just like
I have three.
comments. Okay, go ahead.
Number one, I learned that until they ate of the fruit, they were immortal, and the notion that they would die meant that they would no longer be immortal. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number
that happens, hold that a little later on. Hold on to that for a little later on when they, yeah, go ahead.
Number two, why did God make the serpent smarter than them? That's number two. Number three, why did he make it so easy and accessible, the tree, and like right there, right in the middle, like right in your face? Exactly, but, and that is the point. It's almost like he was daring them to do it.
Or it could be a setup, or God was daring them to do it, or maybe God wanted them to do it.
That's my point.
Yeah, right? Because otherwise, none of us are here, and we're certainly, if we're here, we're like a bunch of, we're not having a discussion about, of a text, and we're not having different opinions, and we're not, none of that, and none of you could say, I think that's right, I think that's wrong. None of that happens without this event. They need to take of that tree, otherwise we become walking around, like, by the way, we'll all be naked, right? And and not even know it. We'd be in blissful ignorance. My like, until this happens, this is in many ways creation part B, because we're not human beings at this point until we go through this process. What distinguishes us from the animals is a higher level of cognition that's not yet present until we're able to. But it's not about the look. It's about what they're doing. They look the same. They look normal, but they look like what we would consider to be human beings, but their eyes had not been opened intellectually. And it was only at the eating that their eyes are opened intellectually. Could be. Okay, hold on. We gotta do hands up because other people have hands up. Go ahead.
Is this the basis of Pandora's box or reverse?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure. What do you think? The question is it Pandora's box or reverse? You can make an argument either way, I think. Okay. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yes. Bara. Yeah. Okay. I think you're making a lot of good points. I think that, I guess the only thing that I would say is maybe I should be more precise. I would agree with you. I think that the first chapter, the days, day 1, day 2, is a certain type of poetry. I would just say it's a different poet or a different sound or a different rhyme than the second chapter. Yeah.
And I think that is so evident when we read it on Simchat Torah and we constantly repeat the refrain. Or
Yeah.
we say the refrain before the Torah reader repeats the refrain
Right.
before each day.
Yes, right, absolutely. But yes, there is a more, while the narrative is expanded, you will certainly die. It's the repetition. It's mot tamut. In the Bible, in biblical Hebrew, when a verb has that kind of repetition, there's a fancy grammatical name for it, and I don't remember what it is. But that's a particular. It's like you will certainly die. It's an emphasized or underscored, but it is poetic. Yes. Yes. Well, it does say b'yom achacha, on the day that you ate from it, you will certainly die. Okay. All right. So let's move on here. The serpent said, "Oh, you're not going to die." Okay. So the leaves. The Talmud has a really interesting teaching about this. By the way, we're at the bottom of page 19. The Talmud says. The Talmud assumes it's figs, by the way, and says figs were brought about the downfall, and figs helped make the repair. And so therefore, you use the things that bring you down to raise you up. All right, we don't have to spend too much time on that. It could be it was the largest. It could be, yeah, you could say it was a different thing and they just looked for the thing that would cover up most of their bodies. That's possible too. I don't know. But you could also make the argument that maybe they were just right next to the fig leaf because that was the tree. But it's not clear. Okay. I'm on the bottom of, that's what I love about it. We can all read this text very differently. Right? And I don't have any monopoly on truth on this text. And that's why I like that it's not to read it, to read it where it invites interpretation. And I hope that I'm doing a good job in this, that the way that Jews read sacred text is as an invitation to interpretation. Where in other traditions, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just think in other traditions, the interpretation the text, there's an answer to the question. There is an answer to the question, and that's where it stops. But where naturally, if you ever did and this is nothing wrong with it, a Christian Bible study is very different from a Jewish Bible study. It's not the same, it's not an emphasis on what's your idea, poking holes and looking and exploring and expanding. It's about to get at the essence of the lesson. And there is an essence of the lesson. Here, we're having debates on whether this was good or bad, or was it on purpose, or was it accident? What's the motivation for God? A Christian study wouldn't see it this way. They would say, this is the fall of humanity. And so I'm a rabbi, so I kind of prefer our way, but anyway, go ahead.
I always thought that the whole basis of not having the vowels meant that you had to do interpretation.
Sure.
Anyway, so that taught us interpretation, and it wasn't until the establishment of the vowels that's when the Christians needed to have, okay, what is the word? Is it maiden? Is it virgin? Is it this?
Well, it's not virgin, by the way. It's betula. It just doesn't mean virgin. But so here's what I think adding vowels in some ways limits it. But I think there was always an oral tradition that was probably attached to it, and we just didn't and the canonization of the vowels. There were different schools of thought. All the Jews got on the same page about the vowels about 1,000 years ago. So Christianity had already been going strong for a long time. So it wasn't like that was meant to definitively sort of conclude with, like, you could still read different things. There's still a lot of room for interpretation with the vowels. Even, yes, sometimes the manipulation of the vowels can create multiple meanings, but even with the vowels solidified, you still have plenty of room for interpretation. Lydia.
Just going back to the serpent and that.
Yeah.
So, it seems like why was the serpent chosen, or why did the serpent feel that he should tell Adam and Eve about, tempt Eve to taste the fruit? Okay, what motivated the serpent, number one? And secondly, maybe it was God, because God wanted Adam and Eve to have knowledge.
Could, right.
And he wanted them to develop and, go on, not live in, a paradise where everything is so la la la, and, it's more like a real thing.
These are great questions. So yeah, Lydia is saying, what's the motivation for the serpent? Why is the serpent chosen? And the text doesn't say. I offered one possible explanation earlier, which is that the serpent in ancient societies was a symbol of supernatural evil. And I think here, this is one way that they're going to show, wait a second, don't have any, God's going to win. But then even within that, layered within that, then is this notion that maybe the serpent is serving as a useful idiot. Like the serpent thinks that the serpent's like really riling it up. But God, according to what you were reading, Lydia, which is that God wants them to eat, is allowing the serpent to rile them up to get the desired result, which is the acquisition of knowledge. All possible readings. You can read this text in so many different ways. You can read God as, you can certainly read God in a very negative light here, as kind of like an overbearing, creator who doesn't want the creatures to create anymore to advance themselves and wants to preserve order. Or you can read God as, God has a plan here and allows the serpent to be useful. You could read the serpent as mischievous or evil intent, but it's being used as an instrument by God. Or you can even read that the serpent is a little bit heroic, right?
It says serpent is the shrewdest.
Yeah.
That was my original point. Why would he make the serpent shrewd but not Adam? Why would he make him shrewder than Adam?
At least initially, right? But then they do a flip-flop. Then the serpent ends up, yeah, Zissel. God is?
Yeah, God is a commanding officer. I gave an order.
Right.
Do not eat from this tree.
Right.
You disobeyed me.
Right.
Therefore thou shalt pay.
Yeah. Hold on. So there is and then we gotta end. So thou shalt end class on time. So we're now we ended with them having loincloths, and we'll continue next week, so at least we're not going to leave them naked for the week. They are clothed and waiting for God's judgment. And you're going to hear, we're going to read about how God reacts and how that created a market for the epidural. Okay, everyone. Have a good day.
think what